Most organizations these days, when they're talking about diversity and inclusion, talk about intersectionality as a factor. I'm not absolutely convinced that most organizations know what they mean by intersectionality. So let's be clear on it. Intersectionality, the original research of intersectionality, is an articulation of the power dynamics that play out across different groups. So intersectionality is an articulation through, critical race theory, that if you are Black in society, that plays out in terms of how people treat you, and there's power and privilege based on your race. But often what we need to do is, if we're going to reduce structural inequity, we have to start connecting different areas of disadvantage. So whilst we're looking at something from a race perspective, in order to be smart here, we've also got to factor in things like the power dynamics of gender. So bringing in those ideas from gender critical theory. So now what we start to do is say, well, what is the intersectional power dynamic of race and gender, which play out and give some groups in society opportunity? So if you are white, one power dynamic. If you are male, one power dynamic. If you are heterosexual, another power dynamic. How does all those things collectively give you advantage in life, or the adverse if you are female, Black, lesbian, etc.? How does the intersectionality of your disproportionate lack of power impact your ability to have opportunities through education, healthcare, and in this context, opportunities to be hired, get effective work allocation, those unconscious micro behaviors at work, your relationships with colleagues, promotions, etc. So intersectionality is really focusing on those different power dynamics which play out across different groups in life and in the workplace. If we take something like sexism and your progression up to leadership, we're often analysing progression to leadership, things like, the think manager, think male principle, things like the double bind, based on a siloed gender lens. So how are men and women effectively read in an organisation? And that's clearly quite useful because we need to eliminate sexism from that process. But what we also need to do is think about, well, if you are Black and if you are Black female, so that intersectional dynamic, how does that intersectionality between your race and gender impact your ability to progress up to leadership? So looking at data across the different lenses and analysing both sexism and racism at the same time in terms of assessments of performance, promotions, etc., that's what we can start thinking about in terms of addressing it. So we've got to first of all be aware of this stuff. But my viewpoint would be look at the hard data, but also the perceptional data which plays out as well. So for me, it's really about kind of data analysis, which can help to address the systemic bias and discrimination.